Hi, I'm Matthew. For the past 12 years, I have been a curator here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences in downtown Raleigh, where I have built and run this, the Visual World Investigate Lab, public education space where people can learn about science and technology. About 3 months ago, this museum hosted a special event. It was an adult-only event called Social in the Shire. As you can guess, it was Tolkien themed. I, being a massive Lord of the Rings fan, wanted to contribute in some way. So, after giving a little bit of thought, albeit probably not enough thought, I decided I was going to construct a tower, Barad-dûr, but I wanted it to be big. How big? This big. In the end, it ended up being about 12 feet tall. It used 96 feet of lumber, 30 pounds of cardboard, a gallon of paint, and took many, many hours. However, I documented the whole process and put in a time lapse. So here is how I built it. So the first thing I had to decide is what it was going to be constructed of. That was obvious to me. I would use something that would be cheap, plentiful, and that is cardboard. What I did here was I designed a structure that utilizes 3 boxes. You've got a bottom, a mid, and a top. They're all made separately and that connect to each other using very long lag bolts and wing nuts. So it can be put together and taken apart easily without any tools. And then the top part would be 2x3s as well. And importantly, made to hold on to 3 monitors. And you can see the way I arrange these monitors. I arrange them in vertical mode and a bit of a curve. Made the arrangement a bit of a curve to give the eye a little bit more, to make it easier to see from different angles. Turn around to the back, you can see how these monitors are being held up with additional short pieces of 2x3. And then these brackets, you can see one here and one here. This eye is just for illustrative purposes. These brackets I designed inside this program as well, right here. And then after I 3D modeled them, I 3D printed them. Here in the lab, I have many different printers. My big creality to print these out at 0.9 millimeter resolution to churn them out in about an hour or so. And those work great to hold it up. You can see there's a bar, 2x3 pieces of wood on the front, and a 2x3 on the back of these posts. And these 2 posts here are what would then slide into those cardboard spires to make the whole thing as seamless as possible. So the only electronics you see from the front are the screens themselves, but hopefully you're not thinking about that too much because there's a giant glowing eye. Okay, and here we go. So as you can see, I didn't actually start at the first cut of cardboard. I wasn't too sure exactly how I was going to start it. I didn't want the added pressure of the camera on while I was starting it out. I knew I was going to do the top portion first because that was the hardest part, and I always like to do the hardest part of a project first. Since the top part is made of, it could be split in 2, one half is equal to the other, I figured I would just do the first half just on my own, take my time, not worry about a camera. And then once I was happy with that, just duplicate the efforts. So that's what I did, using the exact dimensions from a Blender that I had come up with. I started with a shape for the bottom part and built everything up from there. It's very important that I kept all the dimensions the same as what I came up with in Blender so that the monitors would fit correctly. That was one part of this build that had to be accurate, had to be very accurate. And so I'm doing this in the maker portion of my lab. So my lab is split up into 2 different sections. There's like the office area where you can see the coordinator Adrian and myself. That's where we do all our computer work primarily. And then there's a maker lab, which you can partially see here. This is where all the 3D printers are. and the electronics, the Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, all that stuff. And there's also tabletops full of examples of all those technologies that the public can interact with. And then the rest of the lab, 3/4 of the lab, is composed of exhibits using touchscreens and large 3D prints and projection mapping. Those exhibits that we build cover various topics in science, but usually things at the extreme. So extremely large, extremely small, things that are sometimes hard to understand unless you have a good visualization of them. Hence why they're in this lab, the Visual World Investigate Lab, which, by the way, is a free lab. And in fact, the whole museum is free. One thing that's unique about museums in North Carolina is that they're free. There is no price for entry, so you can just walk right into these world-class museums. It's just extraordinary. It's so great. And unless we're doing something special like a class or something like that, you can walk right into our spaces as well. We're open most days and most times that the museum is open. So as you can see, it's just what I'm doing here. It's just cardboard and drawing and measuring and, well, not a whole lot of measuring, and cutting and then gluing with a hot glue gun. That was the main tool. I went through an enormous amount of glue. Try not to do too much, just enough to hold everything together. And I do want this to last. This isn't just for one event. Hopefully we'll have it again in the future because it was an awful lot of fun. One neat little hack I can tell you about that I've never seen anyone do before is how I made the gluing process even faster. So the cardboard, when you glue a couple pieces of cardboard together, this corrugated cardboard, it holds on to heat pretty well. So if the pieces don't want to stay together because you're kind of forcing them together, you would have to hold them for a fair while with the hot glue. In order to speed up that process, because I want to do this as quickly as possible, I use this, one of my favorite tools. It's labeled an air duster. So this is what you would buy. This just puts out air at a tremendous rate. This is what you'd buy instead of buying canned air. It's AC, it plugs into a wall, and that's exactly why I bought it. I bought it so that when I'm cleaning out computers, I didn't have to keep buying cans of air and then throwing them out. This thing is almost like a leaf blower. It's so incredibly powerful and incredibly loud, so I'm not going to turn it on for you. But I would use it to cool down the glue within like 2 seconds. Just great tool. Just very, very loud. All right, so there I'm adding some more of the fun details. Once I got past adding all these scales or whatever you want to call them, I was able to move on to the spikes, and there's like a little balcony in the front. A lot of fun, but didn't make it on camera. Oh yes, all the side pieces, lots of side pieces. Everything was made very roughly, as you can see. Even like these spikes here, it's just rolled up cardboard that's glued together, and then I literally took my pocket knife and whittled the top to make them into spikes, and then add some glue on the top of that so it stays in that shape. All right, so now it looks like it's done, or it's just about to be done. Now I'm going to move it to what I guess you would call the back of the lab. So I've run out of space here. There isn't space here to work on the structure. So I moved it to the back of the lab and stanchioned off about the back quarter of the lab. So people could still walk up to me and walk up to this space here and check it out and ask me questions. And they did frequently. So I had out information about what I was doing so that they could read about it and then ask me questions if they had them. And then I went to work on the structure using this 2x3 lumber and PEX tubing and lots of screws. I think that's absolutely all of what the structure was composed of. I only used one power tool for the whole thing, a cordless drill. For cutting everything, I didn't want to use something that made a lot of noise and made a lot of dust, so I'm just using a little Japanese pull saw here, one of my favorite tools, and then an old vise and a bunch of other tools. Ahead a little bit. I'm working on the structure that the top part of the tower would slide over. And then I'm working on the brackets and everything that would hold the monitors up. That was a very important part of the build, that the monitors be held in place very, very securely, exactly where I want them. So I put it all together before the cardboard went over it, then took it all apart, put the cardboard on, put it back together. You know, it's coming. The first part's coming together. The top part is more narrow than the middle and the body. It does get wider. So there, it slid on surprisingly well. I was very happy about that. Now starting on the braces for the monitors and getting the monitors on there. I'll pause it when I see one of the brackets. There. Pause. There. Okay, so that white bracket there I modeled in Blender. Obviously, can't easily find a bracket online that'll fit on a 2x3 piece of lumber, but this is a perfect application for 3D printing. Some of the most fun 3D models for me are models that let me do something I wouldn't be able to easily do in real life, like make an adapter for something. And so that's what this is. Typical computer monitor mount arrangement dimensions going on to a piece of 2x3 lumber. It worked great. And then there were slots in the side so that it screwed into the lumber as well. Let's continue. For a little bit here. Oh, I think I missed. Did I miss it working? No. All together. Here I've got LED lighting. So this LED strip lighting is really great. That LED strip lighting, I hadn't worked with it before, but I always wanted to. It has silicone, a silicone cover over the lights. And that silicone cover diffuses the light really well, so that it looks like a fake neon light, like neon signs that you would see outside. You can make one of those with this. It's great because it's cool and very, very bright. It casts a great glow. I wanted it to look like, because it's a fiery eye, I want it to cast a glow, and I knew the monitors wouldn't. So I put that behind it, and it makes a great effect. And here I am playing with the video player. It was giving me some problems the first go around, because stretching a video across 3 vertical displays is a very unusual thing to want to do. But using a video player, I found a free one called Pop Player, able to do that. And since I did that, it's been running for the past few months without any issue. There we go. And at this point, I'm quite proud of it. The effect is great. It would be greater, and this is an upgrade I'd like to do in the future, if the monitors were our IPS monitors, if they have IPS. And what that means is that modern monitors allow you to view them from any angle. These are old, cheap 21-inch monitors. They're really only good from one angle. So that's why I turned it just a little bit, but they look black. I'll switch them out eventually. I just have to get some IPS monitors, and then the effect will be so much better, so much better. Okay, so that top part is done. You can see I was taking measurements of it to base the mid section off of the next box that'll sit on top of. Very, very simple box. Going together pretty quickly. Looks like I was getting it ready for the lag bolts. Drawing out where I'm going to drill them out on both pieces in the same place. I wanted to do it before I put them together because I was going to start getting tall at that point. Go. Put the lag bolts in with the wing nuts. It's all about toolless construction and toolless disassembly. So at that point, with just those 2 pieces, it is now already taller than I am, which I am 5'11", so almost 6 feet. And so the tower is already towering above me. Now I'm working with the PEX tubing. So this is tubing that's used to install modern water lines inside of houses. It's very easy to work with. It's easy to shape with, but it's also rigid, and it'll keep its shape. So I just formed these circles with them, these rings with them, and then put like one screw into the two ends of the box, and that was enough to hold it down. And then I would use that to help make when I wrap it with cardboard for it to have like a cylinder type shape. Okay, there. Now I'm starting to do the skin. It's not looking very impressive, but it doesn't need and wasn't going to yet. Working on the third box. I think that the third box is the exact same as the second box, and then I needed the tallest person, my tallest helper, to help me get that on and put the wing nuts on. And now you can't even see the top part anymore. See the space station video in the back here. That's a live view from the space station that is going all the time in the lab here. You can look that up on YouTube too. It's really fun to watch and listen to the astronauts. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. Now getting into a little bit of the details. This is a good example of where I really played with scale here. All these little parts are not to scale. At this point, I'm adding the details that I think are interesting or will have an impact on this particular model, and at a scale that is sometimes exaggerated to just enhance parts that I think will look really good. So already the thing is wider than it's supposed to be. Its diameter is much larger than it should be. But again, I'm most interested in it being imposing and impressive looking and cool looking than I am it being perfect. I didn't make up any of the details, but I did change some of the scale of some of them. Working into the night. A little bit of close-up as I work on the details of some of the cardboard. Oh, this is cool. Let me back up. Okay, so I wanted to give it some, if you look at the real bottle, it's wider at the bottom. So this is just regular cardboard. But what you're going to see soon after I put that up is how I created the rock that looks like it's climbing up the tower. I presume the tower was supposed to be carved out of rock, and there's a lot of rock that they didn't finish carving, so it kind of looks like it, if you look at a model of it, looks like it kind of wraps itself up the tower. So to create that effect, what I'm using is a very thick construction paper. So at the hardware store at Lowe's, where I got all of these materials, you can buy these very large rolls of very thick construction paper that's used for builders to lay down on floors to protect floors when they're building things. Well, because it's so thick, it holds its shape really well. So what you're looking at there is just one layer of that stuff, just wrapped around, crinkled up to look the way I want it, and then just loosely taped on the back so that it can be taken off later and again put back on loosely. I also knew that I was going to want to unwrap it and lay it flat to paint it. And the more it was crinkled, the better the effect was. So I did not have to worry about messing up any of that stuff. And I had a lot of it because it comes in a very large roll. It's a great maker's material. You can do so much with that. Okay, and then these little fins, again, the dimensions are off from what it should be, but it was such an interesting detail right on the front and center that I wanted to make it larger so that it would really stand out because I thought it would have a good effect. Okay, now I'm starting to get some real help here, and this is going to go much faster now because there isn't a whole lot left. It's just a lot of little cardboard details and then painting. Once I finally decided that all the details were done, it was all taken apart. It would be taken apart and put together a few times. What needs to happen now is it needs to come apart so that it can be taken down to a spray booth. In the basement of the museum, there's a wood shop where there's a very large spray booth with a really big fan and everything. So I took everything down there with help, and then I sprayed it all. Sprayed and painted with a brush. There, yeah, there's the painting party. Okay, so everything's back, and now it's one big painting party. So I painted it all in a spray booth with with a black charcoal type color, and now we mixed a white primer with that same color. And now we're adding highlights. Because while it looked good all as one color, you add highlights to something, especially exaggerated highlights. The effect of the dimensions and all the little features just stand out a whole lot more. Try to weatherize it. Make it look like it had been stone that had been up for quite a while and roughly hewn. So it looks like just now some back panels, to cover up all the electronics in the back. So all the electronics, there's like a little shelf on the inside that the laptop and all the cords hang on to. And the home stretch now. This is on the final day, so that night was going to be the night. Now taking it all apart to move over to the other building. This is after the event, and I'm actually putting it back together. So this is the next day, I believe, and I wanted it up to live in the lab just like that for a couple weeks. A lot of people saw it going up, but then didn't get a chance to go to the event itself, but wanted to see its final form. So I put it back together, left it in its final form for 2 or 3 weeks, stared at it for 2 or 3 weeks, as did many other people. And then, what did I do with it? Well, I took it apart. I took the bottom part and the middle part, and I put them in my cubicle. So now 90% of my cubicle houses those pieces, and the top part lives on. And so if you're ever to visit the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and you go to the Nature Research Center, on the 3rd floor, if you visit the Visual World Investigate Lab, you can look back in the area where I'm working, and you may see this. You see it up there? So, this has been the construction of a 12-foot model of Barad-dûr for Lord of the Rings theme event here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, hosted in February 2023. Hopefully we'll have it again in the future. And if we do, I might make something else, but I'll definitely have the tower back out. So if you have any questions about anything, please drop them in the comments. Like, subscribe, all of that. Thank you. I'm Matthew from the Visual World Investigate Lab. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.